And I want to sort of linger a little bit on this idea of challenge the autonomy of man and the sufficiency of reason, and also to some degree deestablish the mechanistic view of man and the biblical medicine as secondary agency. But what does that mean? Deestablish the mechanistic view of man, and also what the autonomy of man? What are we talking about here? Because it kind of goes back to the Garden of Eden yet again, right?
Yeah, so I'm going to go to yesterday's and read you exactly what they say in their manifesto. Man believes that he is the master of his own fate and is able to, quote unquote, improve his physical and mental abilities through drugs, artificial reproduction, and genetic engineering. So it is the secular view of man. It is the Enlightenment. It is medical advances that have led to people not dying of things we used to die of, that they're attacking, because in their view, the Bible contains everything God intended for human beings to know about everything. So vaccines aren't in the Bible, Sam. Surgeries aren't in the Bible, Sam. You know, if people went to a doctor type in the Bible, they were going to their priest. And they go into great detail in this manifesto about how the medical profession is a form of priesting. It's being a priest. It's, you know, it has a religious connotation before anything else. And so that's what they're attacking. They're attacking our rights to our own minds and our own bodies and making decisions about those things from any other perspective than their perspective as white Christian nationalists.
And this this quote from I pulled this from your Substack, but you pulled it from somewhere else. Healthcare should only exist to teach a lost world about the one true God. What? Like, that's why healthcare should exist? It seems it means ultimately that science has no place. And I think that this is kind of a point that I wanted to get to, was that this isn't just about medicine, right? It's about all science and inquiry and all of the things. And if you believe that the sort of singular source of fact is the Bible, then everything else can kind of kick rocks, right? Then you base all human knowledge, you look at it through the lens of biblical scholarship, not even scholarship, just whatever biblical thing you want to take in. How? Let me ask you, why? Like, why turn your back on science in this way? And I know this is like, we always say, oh, the Christians turn their back on science, or these people turn their back on science, and all this. But like, I still, it doesn't resonate with me. Why would you rather ignore scientific evidence or fact in favor of something that is, a really great book to read in a humanities class, but otherwise totally irrelevant? What is it that they're afraid of? Getting cured?
I think, in my church, and I can speak to my specific upbringing and indoctrination, but this is pretty common across white Christian nationalism. We were always discouraged from listening to anyone or seeking much advanced education of any kind. But scientists in particular, academic scientists and researchers especially, were subject to more scrutiny even than that, because, these people first and foremost believe that we evolved from monkeys, Sam.
Oh, God.
And so how can anybody who believes that we are not created in the divine image of God, as they talk about in this text as well, how can we listen to people and follow people's advice about our bodies and our health care and what we're supposed to do to be whole when they're teaching us that we evolved from an animal. And so that was the locus. Evolution was the locus for all scientific skepticism that existed in my white Christian nationalist church. So once you couldn't listen to any of them because they started from a place of evolution is a thing that has been going on for millions of years, and they don't believe that either. They believe that the earth existed for 8,000 to 10,000 years, and God created it all in 6 literal 24-hour days 8,000 to 10,000 years ago. So, they believe that Noah's Ark and the flood is a real story. They believe the Garden of Eden was a real place. And if there are people here who believe those things, I'm not making fun of you. Right. You have every right to believe that. You have every right to seek comfort and peace and instruction and whatever you want to from that. But to force all of us to have our health care decisions be dictated by anyone's religious beliefs is wrong. And so, and that is what we had to do in white Christian nationalism when I was growing up. It was really more important that we pray when we got sick, that if we got something seriously wrong with us, we were supposed to examine ourselves spiritually to determine what we had done to upset God to give us this ailment, because first and foremost, the assumption was that we had some hidden sin in our lives that God was punishing us for. And so imagine what being in those churches can be like when that's the idea that people have. You get something wrong with you, and rather than people being empathetic and trying to be helpful, they're going, well, we need to get down and pray and figure out what you've done to make God mad. What are you doing that you're not telling us about? What do we need to deal with in your life? And what do you need to confess? So, because you're sick. So that's very much how this mentality goes. And that's what they're calling for. Like, you go to your doctor and the doctor says you have cancer. And so the first thing we need to do is figure out how you've sinned to cause God to give you this cancer so that we can fix that. Because throwing money and treatment at fixing this consequence of your sinful choices is not productive. It's wasteful. It's fraud. It's where we get those, So that is what they're advocating for in this document, and what the Heritage Foundation has been advocating for in Project 2025 and Saving America by Saving the Family, without saying so.
Absolutely.